Hi guys, so I'm setting up a dirtless ecosystem aquarium. Now, what that means is I want to set up a planted tank that the bacteria turns fish waste into plant food. Now, the difference between this and using dirt is dirt's got a massive reservoir of trace elements that the plants need to grow. So what I'm going to do is, because it's not in there, I'm going to be dosing a fertilizer, but it won't contain the main nutrients because that'll be coming from the fish waste. So I'm going to set it up using clay to bind all these things, so then they'll feed the plant roots and it'll be self-sustaining. I'll feed the fish will release waste, the bacteria will break the waste down and convert it into plant food, and the clay will store the plant food and then the plant roots can get at it. So the first thing I'm going to need, instead of using soil, I'm going to use clay. And I was looking around online at bonsai suppliers to buy clay, like specific types of clay. I ended up ordering this cat litter. Now, this isn't just any cat litter, it's molar clay. It's a certain type of clay. The reason why I'm using this clay is because it binds the nutrients and stores them. It doesn't break down. And like soil, it's 50p a litre, so it costs absolutely nothing to set tanks up. So I'm going to use this as like the base layer instead of the soil, so then as nutrients break down, it'll store them. So what I'm going to start by adding 1 inch of clay. So this is what I'm going to use so it uptakes and stores the nutrients for the plant roots, and it'll draw the nutrients out the water column, which will keep the water like clear of nutrients. There won't be a ton of nutrients hanging around in the water column because this will be pulling them out for the plant roots, and it keeps the nutrient levels in the water lower. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some fish food. And the idea behind this is, as it starts breaking down, it's like a bread starter, a sourdough starter. It's going to start releasing, it's going to feed bacteria, so the bacteria can break all this down. And they've got something to eat, and it'll colonize bacteria on the surface of the clay. So as we feed the tank, the bacteria will break the waste down, the fish waste, and it'll produce plant food that this clay will absorb. Now what I'm going to do, because I've got some shrimp powder, the bacteria powder, so I'm going to put some of this in it, and just as like an activator to get it, get some bacteria starting to grow in here, because that's the goal I need. I haven't got the cellulose from the soil, so I'm going to need something that will activate the bacterial levels in this bit, and then I'll cap it. So there we go, there's the clay and there's the cap, and you probably wondering to yourself, why don't you just leave the cap and just add the clay? But I don't really want anything that's holding nutrients right next to the light. I want something to cap it. I want it to lower the oxygen levels, so down here's lower oxygen environment, and up here where the bacteria are breaking stuff down, that's higher. That's one of the main reasons. Plus, in future I want to be able to use something that looks a bit more aesthetically pleasing. Right guys, so let me just explain while we're planting up. So in the Walstad method, about 6-12 months in, and the soil starts running out of nutrients, stops breaking down, it slows down with the release of nutrients and CO2. And what happens is it drops into like a quieter period, and it's still a massive reservoir of micronutrients, and the fish food's still feeding macros, the nitrogen and the phosphorus, but you can get a lack of potassium, you can get a lack of iron sometimes. So what your goal is then in the Walstad method is to start dosing these nutrients to buffer them in the system to get them back up, and then the system will carry on processing the fish waste. Now if you think of this tank, imagine if the soil's spent and now you got a reservoir of micronutrients. I'm going to have to put them in there myself, aren't I? But if you think of this system like that, like the soil's exhausted, there's no CO2 coming out the soil anymore, it's just what the animals and the atmospheric CO2 being diffused into the tank and the nutrients. I'm going to have to get a reservoir of macronutrients built up and micros, and obviously the fish food's going to release most of that. But I'm going to have to start dosing a low-tech fertilizer. We're using a fertilizer that doses micros and potassium, and the fish food will provide the nitrogen and phosphorus. I wanted to set up a self-sustaining ecosystem type aquarium without the use of soil. Well, the main reason why I did it is because I want it to run cleaner. So obviously there's going to have to be compromises. There's going to have to be, because there's no soil down here, it's clay. I haven't got the organics breaking down to release the trace elements. So when I feed the fish, I'll break down and the bacteria will break it down and the clay will hold it, and then the plants will use that as food. But then there's what's known as micronutrients, which I'm calling trace elements, that are naturally available. They're in the fish food, but they're not in large quantities, so they'll accumulate over time. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to manually add them and balance the system to get the plant growth. Like usually when you set up a dirted soil-based tank, it releases a lot of excess nutrients, a lot of excess CO2 while all this soil is being broken down by the bacteria. But I want to skip that step and I want to run a cleaner planted tank so I can upscale this model if it works, which there's no reason why it shouldn't. Because there's no excess CO2, I'm running air filter, so that goes into the tank, it raises the oxygen level, which raises up the bacteria, which breaks the waste down, which releases CO2. So it all cycles, it all turns into the self-sustaining ecosystem. That's my goal. And then if this works, I want to upscale it. This is an experiment for me at the moment. Like, there's no reason why it won't work, but I just want hands-on experience, and I'll be able to upscale this to bigger tanks, bigger systems. And this type of aquarium, it isn't as fragile as like some aquariums where you're running it right on the edge, and you like to write up your CO2s, write up your fertilizer routines, right up, and you're pushing for maximum growth. That's not the goal. Like, I want a more stable planted tank where I can feed my fish heavily, I can have high stocking levels, I can dose with trace elements that'll fertilize gently, and the plants, I don't have to worry about over fertilizing because the fish waste, so I'm feeding the fish and the fish waste is breaking down to create plant food. So I'm not worried about that. The plant growth won't be as fast, but it'll be more sustained. I won't be pushing it to its limits of growth. So there's a lot more leeway for error, if that makes sense. And that's the goal. I want something a bit more gentler. I just want a planted tank that's a bit more gentle, and I'm not pushing it for vigorous growth. It's healthy growth sustained by the fish food, which is purifying the water. And then we can, dose these nutrients. I can feed properly. I don't have to worry about feeding lightly. And then you can water change once a month, something like that, just to reset the balance and start again. And it's a nice, gentle planted tank. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you enjoyed what I'm talking about, please consider giving it a like. If you've got any comments, let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. It really, all the interaction really helps the channel out, guys. And thanks very much for watching this video. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you soon.